Hey, moviegoers. Hey, before you jump on a Goomba or get shot behind by the dreaded red shell on your way to the theaters, I wanted to tell you about an exciting way for you to grab the coveted green mushroom and one-up yourself and go to the movies for free.
Let's go!
We are giving away a free $25 Fandango gift card to one of the first 100 subscribers of our YouTube channel. So all you have to do to be entered into this giveaway is go to our Minivan Movie Club channel on YouTube, subscribe to the page, and comment on one of the videos what your favorite movie is. It's just 2 simple steps, and you're entered to win the gift card. And if you want to improve your chances to win, you can follow us on Spotify or any of our other social media platforms, and each follow will give you another entry. Enter today and have a chance to see a movie on the Mini. Show's about to get started, so buckle up. Welcome, all you clubbers to the Minivan Movie Club. We have got a jam-packed show, and I am so excited to be here with you. My name is Brett Gray. I'm a real-life van owner of not just one, but officially 2 vans now. And I am joined, as always, by my sultry, bearded friend, Nick Wiggum. How are you,
man?
How
you guys? I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm happy to be riding shotgun again.
Yes.
It's been too long, only 1 week, but that's too long for me to not be in a minivan.
If you're new here, the Minivan Movie Club, while still a fairly new podcast, a new medium for you, it's not a new pastime. Nick and I have been friends for the past 5 years, and any chance we get, we sneak away and we catch a movie. We catch good ones, we catch bad ones, we catch funny ones, weird ones, scary ones, and ones that are so bad that we have to pray a cloak of protection over my house to prevent demons from entering. But we always end up having these really fun conversations, talking about movies, and whether we're at church or we're at a family function, one of our kids' birthdays, it always seems like you and I find somebody to talk to about a movie. It's like, it's always been about like building community, whether it was you and me originally just trying to become buddies, whether it's me talking to your brother or you talking to, one of my friends, whatever we're at. It's always been about community, and we're really thankful to welcome everybody here to the Minivan Movie Club.
Yeah, the great thing about a minivan is you open up the back and there's plenty of seats for people to hop in. So.
We got seats. We got cup holders for days, baby. Hop on in.
And movie theaters are full of seats, so come join us. Come talk to us. We're happy to pick your brain, for you to pick our brain, for you to give us suggestions, preferably good suggestions. But as long as they drum up a conversation, then it really... that's all that matters to us. We have a good time with it. Even as Brett said, he came to my son's 3-year-old birthday party and then my college graduation a few months ago. And I think at both parties, he wound up talking to different groups of people about different movies at some point, just fleshing out his ideas. And so it really is a vehicle that we use, pun intended, to engage in conversations. It's an icebreaker for us. And I think it's a way that we can open up the door to deeper friendships and deeper conversations, but also kind of create a memory with people that next time we encounter them, like, oh, this is the guy that likes this. Like, we can have that icebreaker.
Yep, so. And it's not about a shameless plug for you to, we want the data metrics to say that you're a subscriber. No, we want you to subscribe so that you can engage and not just have a one-way exchange of ideas and thoughts from us to you, but we'd like for you to kind of participate back. That's why this is a community. It's the movie club, not the movie show or the movie talk. It's the Minivan Movie Club. And today we've got a movie that surprised me in so many ways. So much like the way that I drive a minivan now that I own 2 vans. Like, my life has surprised me. This movie surprised me. But before we talk about it, let's get to our weekly streaming suggestions.
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
Here are your super simple streaming suggestions of the week. I always try to theme my super simple streaming suggestions off of the movie that we're reviewing, so that if you liked the movie we're reviewing or have some thoughts about it, here are some like ancillary or other related products you can go look at. So go on Netflix today and look up the Netflix documentary series High Score. It's like a documentary series of some of the untold history of video games. And like as we've discussed on the show before, I'm certain we'll discuss it today as we discuss the movie. Video games are a great source material for both entertainment and Hollywood. So it's nice to hear some of the actual history behind these companies that created them, whether it's like Nintendo or Sega, arcade games, all the way to console games. And it's really good to see some of the history behind them and get a greater appreciation for those stories. It's just a short docuseries. It's nothing too heavy, really light, easy binge watching when you're folding laundry, whatever you're doing. I'll go check out High Score on Netflix.
So I have two streaming recommendations. The first one is a bit of a rom-com. It is Ticket to Paradise. It stars Julia Roberts as the ex-wife to George Clooney, and they have to travel to Bali, where their daughter, who had just graduated, was going on a summer vacation. And it's every parent's worst nightmare. She's decided to marry a boy from the island. It's a fun little rom-com. I'm not the biggest Julia Roberts fan, but my wife really enjoys her films, and so she twisted my arm a little bit, and we watched it, and it was an easy watch. It's not too long of a movie, and it's got a lot of good humor and a beautiful backdrop. So go watch Ticket to Paradise on Amazon Prime.
Keeping in line with the video game movie theme, go look at Tetris on Apple TV. Tetris is the story of the making of the game. Not just the making of the game, but specifically the contracting process of how Nintendo, Atari, all these different players got licenses or thought that they had licenses. Stars Taron Egerton, really good actor, probably most famously to most people as playing the role of Elton John in the movie. It's just a really good movie, and it tells the story of like literally one of the most iconic video games, console or arcade alike. And it's got big players like Nintendo, Atari, and even the Soviet Union KGB. Everybody's in. So it's kind of got this really cool thing where it's an action thriller, and even like it's an action thriller, and it even sports an actor playing the iconic Nintendo and Mario creator, Shigeru Miyamoto. So go check it out on Apple TV.
Go see Smile. It is on Amazon Prime. Highly recommended if you're looking for something on the scary side. You can curl up with a blanket next to your spouse. Tell them it's a comedy movie about a dentist who makes people smile, and then just bam, right in their face. You've got this horror movie. It does a good job of keeping everything really mysterious and really creepy. Go check out Smile on Amazon Prime.
And last streaming suggestion for me this week is a really interesting animation series. Go look at Arcane on Netflix. It's Arcane. Arcane. It's a TV series. It's got 9 episodes, a little bit different than recommending a movie, but it is such an interesting concept. It's a very cool story based in this futuristic, almost steampunk futuristic society, and it centers around the convergence of technology and magic. This is a very interesting concept, and the animation style is pretty cool. It's like a 3D, 2D type thing. And if you're looking for something to binge and you just want to see something new and unique, unlike what is most popular in the top 10 on Netflix, give Arcane a watch. I really enjoyed it. I got it as a recommendation from my brother-in-law. And when you think about animation as a medium, you've seen a lot of interesting things lately. This is one of those things. It's not necessarily meant for kids. It is definitely meant for a mature audience. Give it a shot. Arcane on Netflix.
One last recommendation comes from Paramount Plus. If you liked Super Mario Brothers, then I highly recommend you check out Sonic the Hedgehog. It is a fun movie. It's a family-friendly movie. It is on the same beats as Mario, except for this one is set in the real world. They did an awesome job with it, and just like Mario does, they keep the story very streamlined and simple, so it's easy to follow along. Go check out Sonic the Hedgehog on Paramount Plus.
So that's going to do it for the super simple streaming suggestions. And if you couldn't tell by the theme of our suggestions, or the thumbnail or the title of this episode, we're talking about the Super Mario Brothers movie with $378 million. It's a huge haul it made in its opening weekend. That's more than any other movie this year.
More than any other animated movie ever.
It's more than any other movie than Ant-Man this whole year. And since Monday and Tuesday, the Super Mario Brothers movie has already become the highest grossing film of 2023 domestically.
Ooh, that's awesome.
In less than a week. So with a runtime of just 92 minutes, this movie is just a nostalgia carpet bomb. Because like Bullet Bill, it is animated, but it is explosive. However, we'll touch base with some of the like Easter eggs and details. I want people to know, though, there are full breakdowns of those on YouTube. You can go check out videos from like New Rock Stars or Screen Crush. But for our discussion, we really want to focus on some of the more sophisticated discussion about what the movie means and why they matter. So let's talk about the Super Mario Brothers movie as we hop into the backseat breakdown. This week, I want to do the backseat breakdown a little bit differently. I think in the past, what we've historically done is given you a recap of the plot. But if you're here for this movie, whether you've seen it or not, spoiler warning, the story really isn't as important as what the movie was or how it became. So I think it's interesting to think about like how Nintendo has been really hesitant to put out this type of movie, because if you revisit the 1993 live action adaptation, despite some attempts to like reevaluate it or really positively say, it was okay, that even includes the Minivan Movie Club listener, the cantankerous mouse, who recently claimed in our comments section that it was the greatest video game movie of all time. Cantankerous mouse said that in our comments section, but for all purposes, it was really a critical and commercial failure that caused Nintendo to just say, we're not making movies anymore.
Oh, no, they shelled
We
up.
don't
They
do
were
that.
Like, we're not doing this.
We don't do that anymore. And time has passed, and Nintendo now has really decided they're ready to venture back into the movie making business. And I think that's maybe more important of a story than the actual story plot of this film, which is interesting because they're starting with their biggest intellectual property in Mario.
Obviously, it's worked.
Super Mario Brothers, and they've teamed up with Illumination and the series creator Shigeru Miyamoto for this new animated movie. So, Nick, I'm curious. We saw this movie together on opening night. We liked it. We liked it so much that we took our kids back separately. So we've now both seen it twice. I'm curious, just like off the top of your head, what were some of your favorite moments?
So one of the biggest highlights for me, it was done by Illumination, and instantly it stood out to me. It had a very distinct look. It was very crisp and sharp. So I really liked that. I really liked the casting of Bowser. I thought that was done excellently. That was the first thing that I noticed when we got out of the theater and we were given our first instant reactions to the film. As Brett mentioned, they kept the story very streamlined. There's no real reason to break down this plot because there isn't much of one, and that is because the creator of Mario wanted to keep it that way. Most of the games are also like that, where the plot, the overarching plot is very simple. And it's something that translates, obviously, because Mario continues to be one of the highest selling games ever. And it's already shown this year in this short time of 5 or 6 days that it's going to be one of the highest grossing films of 2023 and one of the highest grossing animation films of all time. Mm-hmm. So there is we talk a lot about Marvel's formula and the formula they try to imprint onto movies. I really do think that the formula that they used here was really perfect. you see a lot of like the culture war debates and the woke versus non-woke, and it either has to be one or the other. The thing is to me, just like Top Gun Maverick, this film isn't woke or anti-woke. It's just a film that tells a very simple story that is meant to engage as much audience as possible, and it does that well. And as you saw with Top Gun Maverick, and as you're seeing with this film, that films that are just there to entertain you are going to bring people to the theater. It doesn't matter if it's animated or it's jets in the sky and you're not bringing kids to see it. If you make a film that's just meant to entertain people, people still want to come watch it.
Yeah, I like the movie because it's about a dude with a mustache that drives a van.
You're even wearing a red shirt now. You became
It's
you
literally
became
me.
Rooster
Like,
after
what's
Top
not to
Gun.
like?
Now you've turned into Mario.
And I mean, the only thing that's different is like he's really short. I'm super tall. So that's the only difference.
You're Mario on the mushroom.
Yeah. I'm like 2 mushrooms. That's how tall I am.
He's 2 mushrooms in.
No, I think the general feel of the movie is something that struck me. Just walking out of the theater, it felt like a game. Like that Mario pipe sequence when Toad is with him in the Mushroom Kingdom as they're running up to Peach's palace. Like he's like trying to keep up with Toad, and he's going through the pipes and he can't figure out the exact sequence of the puzzles, how to get through. And then it zooms out and he's like, oh man, come on.
Yeah, that even made my wife laugh. In the
that
theater
made me
today.
think of like, how many times have I actually played a Mario game where I'm trying to get to the sequence of the level and like I just keep dying, or I can't get past this one part. Like, oh, come on. Like this movie, more so than any other video game movie, made me think, I want to play this game. And I thought that was pretty cool. Something else I really like, you know, I'm a classic retro gamer. I've got a bunch of like arcade games in my house, very much like retro, old school games. And I've taught my kids those original games. On Mario, I've got those games upstairs. So I've taught them Super Mario 3, Mario Brothers 3. We've played Super Mario Brothers on the NES, Super NES. And I just felt like watching this game. I had a controller my whole time. And you talk about the animation. The animation was just so flawless. This was like a perfect marriage of animation and content where it didn't feel like I was watching a Pixar movie. It felt like I was watching something totally unique. This is the best I've ever seen Mario look. Like, just bar none, everything in the world felt like I was witnessing it for the first time, and that was really special.
So you talked about the training montages and different things. The one where Peach is showing him how to go through the obstacle course, to me, I thought resonates the most with a player playing Mario 1, Mario 2 for the first time. And all the times you're trying to get through those levels and you fail and you fail and you get a little bit further and you fail and you learn new tricks until you finally, he doesn't succeed when he gets eaten by the flower. But it's that same feeling that you get where it's like, oh, I've learned I need to do this at this part and I need to do this at this part. And I thought that was probably the biggest representation of how it feels to actually play Mario. You're like running back and forth away from the fire wheel that goes around and around, and you're doing the little moves with your controller, just edge into the edge to jump over. So I thought that translated really well to an on-screen display.
It wasn't just like one version. A lot of times when you see like video game movies, whether it's like Detective Pikachu, even Sonic, some of the other movies, they're like, hey, let's give you a little bit of a nugget to the gamer. Like, let's give you like a couple, like one like little Easter egg or one little thing, one little moment. Like, oh, we gave you that moment. Now we're going to go back to the movie. This felt like I said, a carpet bomb of nostalgia where it just seeped in everywhere. And it wasn't just Super Nintendo, regular Nintendo, Wii, Switch, like all of Mario's legacy was on full display. I did not feel like they held any punches. And I think that's really cool. I want to give production a lot of credit for not being like, hey, we're making a Mario franchise, so let's keep things for future. I felt like they really laid everything on the table and said, let's just make a good, simple movie, but let's just make it an explosion of Mario. And so when the production of Super Mario Brothers began, the casting of Chris Pratt came out as Mario, and that caused a lot of surprise, a bit of a Twitter storm. Some were very concerned about the choice of a celebrity actor over an experienced voice actor or the actual original voice of Mario. However, to me, Pratt's performance in their role is fine. He brings a little bit of like a familiar charisma. his character is kind of played like this likable but somewhat clumsy Brooklyn plumber, which is a very commendable adaptation. I'm curious from you, what did you think of Chris Pratt as Mario, Nick?
So I enjoyed it. I think really like listening to the original Mario voice actor do the sounds and like little clips of him talking. I think that Nintendo realized like if you put that in an 1.5-hour movie, people are going to be like kind of annoyed by the really thick Italian, like cheesy style of accent that we're all accustomed to and works really great for the wahoo sound effects. But listening to it in dialogue for an extended period of time wasn't something that would benefit the movie. And that's one of the reasons they cast Pratt, because he said he like tried initially to do like a heavy Italian thing. They're like, no, don't do that. Like,
see, I think I really liked the comedy of the way they introduced Mario to the commercial. It's a me, Emma. Like the very thick, goofy accents, and then they kind of like, hey, you think the accents were too much? I almost wish that they would have just done their normal voice. Like Chris Pratt, just do his normal voice. Like now you've given me the sense of like, hey, we did it. We kind of did it as a shticky moment. Now we're just gonna go back to being more relatable. Just my personal preference. I really was just like fine with it. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. But you kind of mentioned this a little bit. I think one of the greatest things about Mario, the reason he stood the test of time, is he's just like this vehicle. He can be whatever he needs to be for Nintendo. He was just a blob of a character in the 80s, and then he became more. All of a sudden he's the face of Nintendo. He's not the first game that Nintendo made. He's just stood the test of time across all consoles, cabinets, computers, all kinds of things. And so, in a sense, I almost feel like this is the perfect choice because it's just this very generic voice, this very generic character. And we don't know much about him, but we know we like him because Chris Pratt's likable. So I'm fine with it. That's just me. I know the rest of the production, the rest of the cast really took a very Hollywood approach throughout like all the cast sheet. Household Hollywood names: Jack Black as Bowser, Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach, Charlie Day, Seth Rogen, Keegan-Michael Key, Fred Artisan from SNL. It's a pretty loaded cast. I'm curious from you, a lot was made going into the movie about the voices and the castings being a bit odd. How do you think the voice acting was portrayed, and was there anything that stood out positively or negatively to you?
So positively, Jack Black was the perfect choice for Bowser. He does a good job with 100%. The grovelly and then the rockiness, which is a total Jack Black. Lends itself well to give the character like another layer besides just being an evil turtle. One voice that, after watching it a second time, I'm not sure if it works for me, is got to be Seth Rogen.
Really?
I'm fine with it. It's not like I hated it, but like something for me, I'm like, maybe it would have been better if it was like more of like a deeper, stronger voice, like maybe like Idris Elba did Knuckles in Sonic. Like maybe if it was more like that style, because it almost, I know that he's kind of like a goofy gorilla, but it almost makes him a little too over the top goofy with Seth Rogen doing the voice to me. The banter back and forth between him and Mario is nice. I really like Charlie Day's Luigi. I liked Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach, but I feel like you had a different opinion on that.
Yeah, so I think Chris Pratt's fine. I don't think he does the high pitch game, which is fine. I agree with you. He instead uses more of like a traditional Brooklyn accent. Meanwhile, I think Charlie Day's portrayal of Luigi, like this loving, fearful brother, is just so impressive. Like watching it the second time, I was even more impressed by him because he really doesn't have that many lines that are like spoken word, but there's a lot of reaction. And so like as a voice actor, I thought he did a great job of making me believe and buy into that character. I would love to see more of that. And I would imagine in additional movies, if this makes this much money, it's going to have sequels.
Oh yeah, like a Luigi's
spin-offs.
Mansion or a Halloween special.
I think that would be like a dream because we talked about Hubie Halloween last episode, how there's not really a whole lot of like true Halloween comedies. Now there's a huge genre of Halloween movies, specifically in horror or scary movies, but you see things like Hotel Transylvania that don't necessarily fit Halloween. It's just monsters.
But they've done really well.
But I think that Luigi's Mansion would be like a instant Halloween classic, instantly great. They just do the exact same thing. I thought he was fantastic. I wish there was more of him. Seth Rogen, I kind of feel just like it was fine. I didn't hate him. I didn't dislike him. But it worked a little bit better for me because the way that they hammed up Donkey Kong's character. But that's more of like how he was written in the movie, not necessarily
Actual Donkey Kong.
Yeah, so I can't speak to that. I love Keegan-Michael Key. I thought Toad was hilarious.
Perfect.
But all of those people have experience doing like voice acting. So when you look at like Chris Pratt's, one of the reasons I was concerned about is I've seen him as Emmett in the Lego Movie. I've seen him as the big brother in Onward. So I was a little bit to be desired in the Mario, but I'm fine with it. The area where I didn't really like at all. I did not like Peach. I thought that was just kind of a area that really could have been better because like literally the first lines, and I told you after our first time we watched it, I didn't really think she was that great. So then going into it the second time with my kids, I was really trying to pay attention. Like, was I just being not paying attention
Hypercritical or yeah.
And the very first line she's talking about when we are in the Toad Kingdom being announced like what Bowser's plan is. It just sounds like she's just reading the lines. It doesn't sound like there's much passion there. And there's a couple areas later in the movie where it gets better, but I don't know how the production is. Maybe they were tired that day or whatever, but I just didn't feel like I bought it. I think a better actress would have been someone like a Kristen Bell. I'm not saying she's the right person for it because she's so synonymous with the Frozen series as Anna, but someone that can present like really joyful and almost like a good naivety, while also being like serious and evoking emotion, because I never really felt emotionally connected to any of these characters. And if there was a character I was going to be emotionally connected to, it had to be Peach, because she's the one that stands the most to lose. So that was just my take.
Yeah, just a quick look through her IMDb. It doesn't really look like she's been in any animated feature. So this may have been her first like go round with an animated role.
Well, and so that's like, for me, like you look at the headliners of this movie, Jack Black does an amazing job. I think Keegan-Michael Key, Seth Rogen, Chris Pratt, they all do fine or exceptional work in this movie. Whereas like for me, I just felt like Anya as Peach was just a miss. Like the voice acting was very uninspired. Felt like she was reading most of the time. And that just kind of cheapens the movie. And I'd prefer to see someone else because it feels less like a forced attempt to find a Hollywood face and just plug them into the movie. Because with Chris Pratt and Jack Black headlining it, you don't need other stars. Like you can find people that maybe are lesser known, and they're going to blend into the composition of the cast so much better. So
I feel like part of it may have also been like she was just coming off of Queen's Gambit. Like her star has never been brighter.
Yep.
And so, Illumination, grab a hold of that. If she continues to rise because she's in a bunch of movies, she's really popular right now. That could be part of why they cast her in the first place.
And I've also read online that some people love it, so that's fine. For me,
I liked it. I thought she did good. I was really trying to pay attention because after we watched it the first time, you'd voiced your opinion on it, so I was trying to pay a little more attention. There was some scenes I really liked of hers. Some of the initial talking, like when she's just talking to Mario in the castle, I did kind of get some of that feeling that you were talking about, where it's like she's not really conveying a lot of emotion in the dialogue. Like it is kind of like she's just talking into the mic instead of like portraying the character. And like you said, maybe that's what they filmed first, and then as time went on, she got more invested and really started to sell it more. Yeah, but that is something you do have to sell because we can't see you physically, so you have to sell it with your voice. I mean,
you and I know we have kids. I've got 4 kids. You've got 2 kids. We don't just watch a lot of animation movies. We hear a lot of them because we're doing stuff. I have a minivan with a TV in it, so I listen to a lot of animation movies. So I'm used to hearing actors, and credit to Charlie Day. I did not think I was going to like him in this movie. I mentioned it last week. I was concerned that Chris Pratt and Charlie Day as these 2 lead characters was not going to work. Chris Pratt is fine, but Charlie Day didn't just like impress me. He wowed me. I want a Luigi movie. I'm excited about that, but when I look at the performances from like Jack Black, Charlie Day, Keegan-Michael Key, those are exceptional. Blow me away. Like, okay, I'm along for the ride. I didn't think that the other things are that great. What did your son think of it?
He enjoyed it. He made it all the way through until like the last 5 minutes, and then he leaned over to my seat and said, "Daddy, can I watch something on your phone?" But he liked it. He really was invested in the Donkey Kong fight scene as they're going back and forth.
Yep.
Mario, the first time he tries to get the power-up box, he just starts screaming, Mario won! And I'm like, bro, the fight just started. Calm down. Calm down. But he was excited for that part of it. I asked him afterwards what his favorite part was. He told me he thought it was cool when they were driving on the Rainbow Road.
Yep.
For a 3-year-old, he did great. He sat there for the whole movie and was eating his pizza. Shout out to last week's draft episode. But he really had a great time with it. For me, it was a great experience because as somebody who loves movies, since I had a kid, I've thought about this moment going to see the first movie with my kid, and it was kind of a little bit of a small parental dream come true.
Sweet.
And he didn't go crazy. We didn't have to leave the theater early. There was no like major blow up, so that's good. And he was laughing, he was paying attention. I was a little worried when the Luigi Mansion stuff happened. I didn't know if he'd get scared, but it didn't faze him at all. So
Yeah, my kids have been to the movies a handful of times. See Trolls, Frozen 2, Super Pets, a few movies. I have a little bit older, so I've got a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2, almost a 3-year-old that went with me. And I asked them after the movie, what did you think of the movie? So first off, their favorite characters, all 3 of them, were either Luigi or Bowser. That was who they liked the most. I don't know what this says about like their mind or the movie, but they didn't remember Mario's name. They're like the red one.
They're like, we don't even know what movie.
But they knew Luigi and Bowser. They loved. While we were outside earlier today doing scooters, my youngest daughter was just going, Peaches, 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 Peaches. Like the song caught. She was very, very in it, and they really loved it. And as an adult, I love Jack Black as Bowser, not just because he's like silly and zany in the way that only Jack Black can be, but also in the way that they wrote him. They borrowed a storyline. I didn't realize this in the first time, but I talked to my brother-in-law who's a huge Mario fan. They borrowed part of that like wedding storyline from Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
And I think that's super cool because it turns Bowser from being this like, I'm just evil. And there's so many movies about like, oh, the big, dumb, funny villain who can't get out of his own way. Like this guy's actually kind of like trying to be endearing. He just doesn't know how to actually execute against that. So it makes him much more relatable. And we've seen a lot of movies like, when the villains are good, the movie is better served by that. So I liked that a lot, looking at that. And then something else I thought was really funny, and the second time I watched it with the kids, was that Fred Armisen from SNL, who does the Cranky Kong voice. It just sounds like a Bernie Sanders impersonation. Like, as I was watching, I was like, it sounds like Bernie Sanders.
They're like, hey, do the Bernie voice again. Like, damn it.
So I think like our kids and kind of the takeaways from that, I found myself talking to my son, like, why did you like Luigi? And he's like, well, at the end, he saved his brother, and I liked that. He got the star for him. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. He like took this little theme from it. I think there are so many themes, both in the movie, but also just like meta themes about like what this movie means being released today. So like, what were some of the themes or topics that you picked up on?
So for me, the big one is brotherly love. Obviously, Mario's motivation throughout the movie is to get back to his brother. He tells him right before they get separated, as long as we're together, nothing can hurt us. And of course, instantly
Boom,
they're ripped
they're
apart. And his brother goes into the fiery place. It's like, oh, God. And so I really enjoyed
He gets
that.
like sucked into hell.
I know,
That's what it looks like.
He's like, oh, my God.
My kids, when that happened, they go, it's too loud, Dad. It's too loud.
Like, all right, calm down. No, they get separated, and I was listening to a critique of the movie, and they were talking about how it was kind of a stupid one, but they were talking about how the damsel in distress throughout the movie is Luigi, but really at the end he has a moment of growth, because you see in his flashback when he's a little boy and he gets bullied, and his big brother Mario's there to save him. And throughout the movie, Mario's trying to get there to save him. But in the end, it was him who saves Mario. And so you get to see that growth. So my one concern would be going forward, if they do like a Luigi's Mansion or a sequel, if they continue that growth process, or do they revert him back to like the scaredy cat? And that would just be my one worry, is that they would go back to that previous nature, just because it works so well in this film. But I thought it was awesome to see. I've got two brothers. I've got a younger brother. My son recently, he got in trouble for smacking a kid at the library. And I asked him, why afterwards. I wasn't there. He was with his grandmother. I asked him afterwards, why'd you hit that kid? What? And he was like, Daddy, I just wanted to. And I was like, well,
you're Bowser.
And we're just sitting in the room talking to each other.
You can't be acting like a Koopa.
Well, I'm like, you can't hit people just because you want to. Just because you get the feeling, that's not a good reason. I was like, we don't hit people. I was like, unless somebody's messing with your little brother. We can talk about it afterwards.
Fair game.
I'm like, if somebody's messing with your little brother, or they're messing with your mom, any other reason than that, he's like, what about you, Daddy? I was like, I don't need you to protect me. But if it's your brother or your mom, then I'm okay with it. And we'll talk about it and we'll have those conversations. I don't condone violence, but protecting your little brother, it's okay. And that's the only time in my life where I've ever actually hit somebody. I was protecting my little brother. We were all kids. It wasn't like a UFC fight type thing or anything, but that's the only time I've ever gotten in a fight. It was to protect my family. And I think that's one of the few times where it's actually justifiable if you're protecting somebody from harm. And so that's something that I think resonates really well to real life, and anybody that has siblings, especially a younger sibling, I think really understands that dynamic.
Yep, for sure. I think there's a couple of different things I picked up on. Obviously, the Peach says, you don't know when to quit. It's a good thing. And then it comes full circle towards the climax of the movie where Bowser's like, you don't know when to quit. And he's like, yeah, someone told me that's a good thing. So like the theme, like, don't ever give up in the face of adversity. That's a really big thing. I love the moment when the Mario's dad says, Mario, you're amazing. And he goes, thanks, Dad. Just kind of a reminder as a parent, tell your kids that they're amazing.
And part of it is, as a parent, you're an immigrant parent specifically, you fight so hard for your kid to have options and a successful life. So to them, if you're leaving something so steady, a steady paycheck, you've got to be crazy. Like, you've got money coming in. Why would you ever risk that for a pipe dream? Pun intended.
Pipe dream, yeah. So I think it's interesting here. I found the story, just as a whole, like the plot, we skipped it on the backseat breakdown. I found the story to be severely lacking. But I also know that I'm not the target audience. Like, it's weird to have been someone that grew up in maybe the hype of Mario being. I had a NES, I had a Super NES. I played all the Mario games. I've played them all hundreds of hours trying to beat levels and beat Goombas and save Princess Peach from the castle. But we're not the target audience. Kids are. And I think that this movie speaks to a lot of the identity issues that adolescence deals with, like being brave, trying sports, not being big enough, don't give up, the importance of teamwork, love your siblings, and your parents being proud of you. And I think this really tackles that a lot. Even for a movie that I think the plot is so poor, it speaks to a lot of issues that a 7 through 12-year-old kid is probably dealing with. And I've got a nephew that's in that age range. He's got a Switch. He has a Kirby backpack. He collects Pokemon cards, and he loves Mario. And I think as much as to me, I'm like, this stuff is kind of just silly. I think it's cool that he has a movie like that. Why do you think it's so important for us to have movies that are able to do that?
Well, they inspire us, and we have to think about, just like us when we were kids, these movies are going to be something that they're going to watch over and over and over and over again. As parents, we already see it with our kids. They find a movie, and then that's the movie they watch. I know a lot of people in Encanto, in Frozen, they've seen hundreds of times. That's their kids' go-to. It's their comfort blanket. And so for somebody who's already a fan to have such a streamlined story for them, I think it's excellent. You look at the ratings from critics and ratings from fans, and it's a vast void of difference. Critically, I get that they have to look at like the what's the plot, what's the subplot, how do they execute it, and since there's not much of one critically, that it'll take some knocks. But the target audience is children, and evidently not having a plot was a very successful means for them. Now, does that translate going forward? Can they continue to rely on very simple plots to keep people invested? or will it be something that like kind of comes back to get them if the nostalgia is not there, if the jokes aren't there?
Yep. So that speaks to like some of the, we talked about some of the good things, how it is just a nostalgic carpet bomb. It's really interesting and it's really well done. It is a very pretty, I hesitate to say that a Mario movie is a beautiful movie, but like animation wise, it is just a very superior film to what we've seen from other very established studios, even Pixar, which is interesting. What were some of the things you like disliked, or maybe you wish had been executed differently, if there was anything?
I mean, some of the like we already talked about some of the voice acting issues that we had. Plot wise, I mean, there could have been a little more, but you really don't want it to get too convoluted. I think it really met all of my expectations. I was excited before the movie, and it was pretty much what I thought it was going to be, which was
See, I was not excited about it. I was like, oh, Mario movie. I guess they'll ruin that one too.
And so I really enjoyed it, and who knew that the secret to success for these video game stories, just like The Last of Us, was basically just to put the same exact story onto the screen and people are going to watch it.
See, I almost respect this in more ways than The Last of Us, because The Last of Us show is like a carbon copy where they're just like, hey, let's just do that.
The Last of Us is a little different.
And let's just cut all the Joel killing people out and we'll do some of it. But like this felt like I was playing Mario. Like I wanted the Switch Joy-Con, because this felt like, oh man, this feels like I could actually be playing this on my TV at home. It was really, but on the flip side, some things I didn't like. I told you I didn't like. I think Anya as Peach was just a miss. I've got a lot of movies in my DVD player in the van. I don't want to listen to her. Another area I thought was weak, and the critics have destroyed them on this, is they did so much work to create like original score from the games. I think I saw in the new Rockstars video that they had like 163 songs from the movie in one song, or from the games in just one song. So they clearly did a great deal of effort to go into the catacombs of all the pantheon of Mario music and create these scores. And then they kind of like very lazily put in these 80 music songs. And I have literally read in comment sections on YouTube that people are like, oh, I love that there was some 80s music. It reminded me of being in the arcade. And I just want to remind people that Mario as like a game is not a arcade game. It's a console game. He appeared in a couple games like Wrecking Crew and Donkey Kong, but he as a character is not an arcade game. He came out in the 90s. So this 80s music doesn't fit. It's not canon. And that sounds like me being a stickler, but I think like I Need a Hero in that training sequence, or Take On Me in the Donkey Kong world, they just feel like really lazy choices when they did all this extra stuff to make music. And because of like Mario Kart and all the games, there's so much music that they could actually recreate, and they did that in other areas. So they showed me they're capable of doing it, and then they didn't do it. It just feels really lazy. And again, I know for other people, they're going to be like, oh, I like the 80s music. But for me, it was just a nasty ick.
I love that I Need a Hero song, so it did well.
It's just so overdone and outplayed. I don't need another.
Song, yeah.
I don't need another version of like, hey, let's do a montage to Take On Me. Let's do a training montage to I Need a Hero. Like, it seems really lazy. And then last I mentioned the story. I just think it's weak, and it's not necessarily. What's weird is usually if the story is weak, it's to the detriment of the film. This time, I think it is very intentional. It's just a very safe choice by Nintendo, which the Acquired podcast, which is hosted by a guy named Ben and David, they have a really cool episode. It's a 3-hour-long episode on the entire history of Nintendo. I listened to it a while back, and it's really interesting to see some of the like really weird stuff that Nintendo has gone through, but especially to see their culture, how and why they do a lot of the things that they do. And I think when you think about like the 93 movie and then this movie, Nintendo clearly had a lot of control. And they said, we're not going to allow this to be a very weird, like niche cult film. This is going to be a Mario movie. Everybody from Japan to California and everywhere around the world has played a Mario game in France and Germany. And we have to have this game ready. We're not going to have this weird, like Americanized humor. We're not going to have, cultural jokes. It's just going to be a Mario movie. And I think overall that works really, really well, because it was going to be, an animated movie in my mind. But then when I saw it, I was like, no, this is a Mario movie. And I think that's pretty successful.
Yeah, I didn't really think about the score stuff because they did do such a good job in so many other scenes. But I do see exactly why that would be a solid critique of the film.
One of the things that stuck with me on like the initial watch, but really captivated me on the second watch, and we've already mentioned this, is just how incredible the animation was. Literally, this is like the perfect medium for those characters for it to be CGI. The animation is done, and we've seen a lot of innovation in that space for quite some time. It seems like Pixar has been the king of animation, and now we're seeing a lot of innovation from Sony with Into the Spider-Verse, Illumination, DreamWorks, lots of movies like Mitchell's versus the Machines, and even the trailer for Trolls 3. It looks like they're doing some really fun and crazy things with animation. These studios are really pushing the boundaries, but what do you think that says about like the current state of animation? And do you think like Pixar is still the king?
No, I don't think they're still the king. I think you've seen this film, which looked stunning, visually stands out. Of course, you have Spider-Verse, which blew everybody away, and Sony.
I'm so excited about that movie.
Oh, yeah. No, we were watching it. Gibson's like, "Where's Peter Parker?" The trailer today. So Spider-Verse visually was super stunning. They did some sort of proprietary trademark on that animation style. Even the new Ninja Turtles has a very unique look. So I think they're really, really pushing the boundaries with things. And Pixar just still looks like Pixar looked, 15 years ago.
My daughter saw the trailer for Elementals, the new Pixar movie.
Oh, yeah.
And she asked me if it was an old movie because she thought the animation style looked dated. And so I kind of feel like with maybe some political infighting happening at Pixar, maybe they've lost sense of like what that identity is, and other people have caught up. There used to be this huge gap, and Pixar has that like very standard formula. I talked to my other niece who's 11 about the Elementals movie, and she's like, "Oh, I don't need to see it because I already know the plot. I saw the trailer, so I know this is what it's going to be, blah, blah, blah. The fire and the water are going to get together. They're going to make a new element, steam, and they'll power a train or something like that by the end of the movie." Whereas she was so pumped to see Mario, even though she knows everything about Mario. It wouldn't be a Minivan Movie Club show without an MCU reference. And there are several pieces of the MCU like imprinted into this movie. Undoubtedly, there is the opportunity to build a massive, massive Mario franchise, a Nintendo franchise. And many studios have done their best to like create something, whether it's a Monsters universe or something else. And
everybody's got.
Everybody's like, "Oh, yeah, let's make it a let's do 13,000 Hunger Game movies. They'll never get old, and they never pan out." What do you think Nintendo was able to prove with this movie and like the potential for video games?
They knew what they were doing from a marketing standpoint and what they were pretty sure was going to work with their target audience. I think going forward, it'll be interesting to see what their end game is with this. Is it Smash Brothers? Is that what we're working towards?
Smash Universe.
You've already got
NCU, Nintendo Cinematic Universe, Smash Universe.
Oh yeah, and it would be fun. I mean, you've got obviously Nintendo, the next project that makes a lot of sense. I think you would get a lot of butts and seats, and it's a lot of people's. It's got tons of nostalgia, and kids still play it. Would be Legend of Zelda. You could do an hour and a half Legend of Zelda movie, very streamlined. You've got Ganon. He takes Princess Zelda, and Link has to go rescue her. It's a very straightforward story. I think you could do it well. You get a good team of writers, great animation style, and you get butts and seats, and I think that would be another home run for them.
I think Nintendo has built this brand, this very procured brand that is rarely embattled with controversy. And while the main competitors they have, like Sony or Microsoft, have really embraced more mature or even like violent video game content, they, for the most part, like Nintendo has drawn a line in the sand of like, we're not going to engage with those types of graphic nature. We're going to have these properties that we've had forever, and we're just going to keep making them. We're going to update them with new technology, new graphics. We're going to play with them a little bit on different handheld consoles. We're going to find different consoles to deliver it, but we're going to just kind of repackage the same thing. And that seems like it wouldn't work. And somehow they're still around. And when I think of some of the games, I just go back to like, what were the early Nintendo games that had like still have relevance? Because just like this Mario movie is nostalgic, not only to me, it's nostalgic to my 7-year-old nephew. Like, how is he nostalgic for something? So I look at like Donkey Kong is an obvious spin-off from this. Go do a Donkey Kong Country.
Yep.
That was literally my first video game cartridge on a Super Nintendo was Donkey Kong Country. So I would love to see that. They've got Diddy Kong, Cranky Kong, all those people. The world's already built. Just go do a movie. Easy. I think some other areas, Legend of Zelda. Would you do that animated or would you do it live action?
I would do it animated.
You didn't even think about doing the live action.
I think for them, you stick with the animated. It translates well from your games because they're like visually they're still nice, but everybody's pushing for 4K, like super realistic, and Nintendo is still like we're cool with the 1080i.
See, so I had a conversation with my brother-in-law, and he loves Legend of Zelda, a huge game from all of us growing up. I played that gold cartridge on the NES so many times. Oh my gosh. He kind of convinced me. I thought I wanted the animated too, because I was like, oh, would it be difficult to find the voice since he doesn't really talk in the games at all? Except,
That's just like Mario.
Like, would that be difficult or would it be easier? I think it'd be easier personally because he doesn't have a voice. But then he was like, look, like a Lord of the Rings, this has lore. This has real things. And when I start thinking about like a potential Super Smash Brothers like movie, I think it'd be really cool to see a live action Link with these animated characters because that feels very Smash Brothers-esque. I totally thought I wanted the animated in the beginning, but now I'm kind of like, I'm just really interested to see where they go with it because I think there's options.
You talked about earlier, it was 93 when Mario came out. Nintendo isn't one to make the same mistake twice, so I think they'd be super hesitant to do a live action Link movie, especially after this one's success. And you could make it work, but I think for them, they're going to say it'll translate so much smoother for us. You'll run into certain things if you have a human stuff mixed in with animated stuff, and why we have the technology to make it look pretty good now. I think for them, it just translates much easier if they, like, could you imagine seeing it in the same animation style as like Spider-Verse? Like, that would be crazy to like watch like a super stylized Link go into the story. But again, you talked about Game of Thrones. It's a much more complicated idea, and the stories are much more complicated in Link. So would that translate well? It would be interesting to see.
I think it's a little bit more of a mature story where like there's actually a plot to the games of Legend of Zelda. Those actually have beats and emotions, and I think adding a character to Link would be a very interesting take. Again, I can see them going both ways. I just think it's an interesting discussion. Other people that I think obviously are prime for animation is like a Kirby movie. Kirby is a beloved Nintendo character, beloved Super Smash Bros. Character, and there's just so much to it. Already looks like Illumination. They've already got the partner. I'd love to see them do something about F-Zero. That's Captain Falcon. That could be a really cool movie. There's lots of characters there. Star Fox is one. I'd really love to see a Metroid movie.
Oh yeah, Metroid would be so cool.
You talk about a lot of things today, like making sure there's representation in movies. Seamus is a girl. So having a female lead in a really cool movie, you could do Metroid live action. You could do it animated. It could be a really cool like female version of Mega Man. Instead of doing like, hey, let's just change the gender of the person. No, let's just tell an actual female story of Samus in Metroid. Or you could do like this really gritty alien type interpretation of Metroid. Or there's also like just Super Mario Brothers sequels where they're going to introduce Yoshi and Daisy and Princess Rosalina. I saw a really funny meme talking about the possibilities of Wario and Waluigi for like a Mario Party or a Odyssey sequel. And I saw the meme of like potential castings of Danny DeVito as Wario and William Dafoe as Waluigi.
That was awesome. That would be awesome.
And I was like, dude, I need William Dafoe as Waluigi. And like I said, I'd love to see Luigi's Mansion movie, like just a dedicated haunted spook film. That could be just all-time classic. And we've got the Pokemon sequels, Sonic's out there. So there's a lot of movies out there that I think would be really interesting. You know, I wonder, you think there's any appetite for like a Final Fantasy movie?
They've had some slight success with animated movies, not the Final Fantasy movie that came out in 2004 or whatever it was. That was kind of panned by both critics and fans. I'm sure that it's something they always think about. I mean, they've released 16 games now.
What if I I'll give you a movie, or I'll give you a video game, and you tell me if you want to see the movie.
Okay.
Metal Gear Solid.
I'd watch it. I think they're in development of a show right now.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. Grand Theft Auto.
Oh yeah, I'd watch that.
Which game or which story are you making into a movie?
For me, the games I played in middle school, it would have to be either a Vice City game movie or a San Andreas. San Andreas was my big
I think
one.
Vice City would be a really cool one because it's not as dark as some of the other storylines are in like 4 and 5. And also like it'd be fun to like be a very stylized 80s movie. Like visually, I think that'd be really interesting. What about Red Dead Redemption 1 or 2?
Oh, I think that would be perfect. I've heard some people calling for HBO to make that a TV series.
Do you think it's too soon because of like Westworld? Is it kind of too similar?
They probably have all the sets still, so you could just like roll it right into something that works.
Halo.
No, I'm not really that interested. They've tried to adapt that. Like if I saw a trailer that was epic and they really put some work into it, I maybe, but just off the top of my head, no.
Okay, retro games to our childhood. Animated. Marvel versus Capcom.
Oh, I would love it.
Doesn't that sound like why isn't Kevin Feige doing that in What If? That sounds like a perfect What If like season.
That's why they fired that head of animation. He was like, I want to watch Marvel versus Capcom. What are you doing?
Doesn't that sound like a boss movie?
Oh yeah, dude, that would be awesome.
Kingdom Hearts.
I could watch it. Obviously all the Disney properties are awesome. Like everybody our age, I played the first one.
After watching Mario, I'm really ready. I want a Kingdom Hearts movie. This movie made me nostalgic for the future of what that could be. I think it's a good movie. I'm going to throw out another one just for me. We mentioned it a few weeks ago. We talked about John Wick Chapter 4. I want to see a remake of The Warriors. It's a video game now. Awesome. I want to see it. So with that, I'm curious. Let's talk a little bit about rankings before we park this bad boy. What did you rank the film, buddy?
I loved it, but it's still, to me, maximized ceiling. I think it's a 7. 7 minivans. I think without a plot, which works for the film, but and I can rewatch it a bunch of times, but still, like, overall, it's an all-time video game film. It's an all-time return back to and enjoy film. It's a film that I think opens the door for a lot of stuff, and it's going to market and sell really well. But if I'm talking about movies that emotionally have a bunch of weight for me, it's not there. It's made for kids. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a great kids film. If this was Rate Kids Movies podcast, I'd give it a 9.5, but that's not what it is.
The Super Mario Brothers movie is clearly made by people who love and understand this enduring appeal of video games, of Mario, and there's just plenty of unobtrusive Easter eggs to all the games. I picked up on a lot of Mario Brothers 3, some of the classic stuff, but then seeing all the new stuff that's in there, it's clearly just a love letter to Mario. I think it's a proud celebration of the character and the character's appeal, but that's not to say it isn't without its flaws. I mentioned I think the music choices were a bit lazy. I don't love Anya as Peach, and I think that the story has room for improvement in future installments. And if it doesn't improve, it will get more negative dings for me, which again, I fully expect to see that. Nevertheless, though, that's more of like a misstep in this one, not a game over for me. This movie isn't great, but it's super. And I think that's what they were trying to do. So Nintendo achieved what they wanted to do. So for me, it gets a 7 out of 10 stars. Wahoo! Hey guys, really appreciate you tuning in with us. Every week, we love hopping in the minivan with y'all. Cruising around, whether it's on your weekly commute, whatever it is. Next week, we are talking about The Last Kingdom, Seven Kings Must Die. That's going to wrap it for the show. As always, we really appreciate you showing up here in the Minivan Movie Club, and we'll see you down the road.
Thanks for riding along.